welcome to another episode of Top Rope Talk. I am your host. Well, we are the hosts. Denzel Snipes. I've got the sports agent himself, MLB and not NBA. He's gonna conquer NBA one day. Mark my word. MLB sports agent Sean Russey. Welcome everybody for another fest. We got a loaded episode for you. We decided to go on about 10 minutes earlier tonight because we are having the recap of Saturday Night Main Event from this past Saturday. So, with that being said, follow us on all, before we get started, follow us on all of our great platforms at Sideline Sports. We are at Sideline Sports on Facebook, YouTube. You're probably watching us on YouTube right now, so hit the like and subscribe button. Also, the notification button for all updates and new episodes. Also, we are on X and on TikTok as well at Sideline Sports and Sideline Sports 1. So, with that being said, Sean, how you doing? A hell of an event this past Saturday, man. What'd you think?
Yeah, no, everything's going good, man. Thought it was a decent show. We'll talk about it more in depth. I questioned the match order just based on what was going on over on the overall part of the night. But other than that, decent show.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Well, we'll go ahead and get right on to it. And that is our WWE Saturday Night Main Event recap. 1 second. Forgot to change the color. There we go. Actually, nope, that wasn't even it. This is it. Bingo. They bring on that championship gold. Okay. Our WWE Saturday Night Main Event recap from November the 1st, this past Saturday. So, we're getting the festivities started with the WWE Championship. We had Cody Rhodes successfully retain the championship against Drew McIntyre. Was this the right call? I had a feeling that Drew was going to take it, but and I don't know what's going on as far as Cody Rhodes with the filming of Street Fighter and everything. I think the filming actually commences this month. I thought maybe that he dropped the title, but surprisingly he retained it. But was this the right call?
Yeah, I mean, they seem to be planting little seeds that maybe we are going to eventually see a Cody Rhodes heel turn here. He was the one to end up using the title with the DDT. And he kind of looked around to make sure the ref was still out. He's like, all right, safe to do it. And drops McIntyre on the title. I'm sure we'll hear about that from McIntyre Friday on SmackDown. But yeah, I think, with the way they're going with Cody, if they're going to continue to tease and drop little hints that maybe he's not as pure as he seems, then yeah, I think it was the right call. The only thing I question is if Cody is QB1, face of the company, and I'm not arguing that CM Punk and Jey Uso aren't big stars, but obviously they always say Cody Rhodes is the face of WWE. I think they should have flipped that match with the Punk and Uso match and let Cody close the show.
Yeah, agree. It's just the thing about it is, and we're gonna get to Uso Punk in a minute, but the two hottest commodities in WWE, the two hottest baby faces, undoubtedly are Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. If you turn them both heel right now, who do you have as the hot baby face? Like who would be next? You're gonna build Jimmy? Who would be next?
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see that they're dropping hints with both these guys, especially you figure Roman is somewhere here in the picture shortly because of Mania season. Punk is obviously a face and we don't see him turning anytime soon. I think maybe, and again, we haven't heard much. It's been rumored it could be 6 months. It's been rumored it could be 3 months. Rollins is obviously coming back as a face given the attack by Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. So maybe they're like, once Seth comes back, we're going to have this huge babyface problem. We're going to have too many baby faces. So maybe they're preparing for that. And it's going to be, Seth, Roman, Punk, and whoever doesn't turn out of Rhodes and Uso in terms of your four top baby faces going into WrestleMania season or after, as we get into the next cycle here.
Yeah. You kind of figure, right, with with Seth Rollins, and if he comes back as a face, I know people are going to ask, like, well, what was the heel turn really all about? Well, there, I looked at the Vision as kind of like a miniature version of Evolution. That the reason why it was formed was to build up Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. And even though the injury happened and everything, it makes perfect sense that Breaker could be looking at being the top heel on Raw. Now there's a guy named Gunther that may argue that, but you know what? That's also another question. How do you feel about a Gunther face turn?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting, right? Because he's rumored to be in this tournament. Um, I think he would actually play well as a face. I mean, he kind of has the whole Cody Rhodes act in terms of come out in a suit, blue collar type of thing. Um, It'll be interesting to see what they do with him because he's just been such a heel this entire time. And he's been a great heel. He's really knows how to work, the psychology in the ring. He's been an absolute monster heel from day one. And I think you run into the same problem with him is when he comes back, it's almost hard to keep him away from the world title scene. So you've got to figure out some way to get him a story to keep him away from where he, realistically should be almost at all times.
Yeah. And this is what I love about Gunther, is he is if this makes sense, he's the perfect mixture of 2003 Triple H and Alberto Del Rio.
Yeah, no, and for me, I know once Brett kind of moved up past the IC title, he never kind of went back down to it. For me, he's kind of like Brett. He's one of the best in-ring workers we've got right now, and at least with him, you could see him not going back to the IC strap as a demotion, and he would elevate that title again.
Right.
Not that Dom hasn't done a great job, but having a monster with the belt is something different when you're taking down a monster with the belt versus taking down Dom Mysterio, a little cheat steal type of angle.
Yeah. And you know what? That is the best way to elevate a secondary championship, is to have a former world champion hold it. We saw it back in 2015. The United States Championship and the Intercontinental Championship had become an afterthought, right? And then at WrestleMania 31, Daniel Bryan won the Intercontinental title, and then John Cena won the United States title.
Yeah, and then you had Roman hold it after that. Rusev held it at some point. Lots of big names, started to hold those titles because, like you said, they had really become afterthoughts, and it was just like, who's got that belt right now? It was almost like the TV title. No one really cared.
Right. Well, with that being said, we'll move on to our next one. And man, did anybody expect what was going to happen with this one? After the third longest women's championship reign in history, Jade Cargill demolished Tiffany Stratton in dominating fashion to win her first world title. She is the new WWE Women's Championship. Sean, your thoughts about this match? I've been waiting to hear from you about this.
Yeah, so we talked about this in the group as it happened. It had me thinking about what Lesnar does to Cena every time they step in the ring.
Right.
Just suplex and slam after suplex and body slam and big move after big move. It wasn't any little chops and headlocks. It was big move after big move. And just a complete destruction of Tiffany, really. Obviously, it sets up a rematch for down the line, but wow, they really made Jade look strong. And they, for me, it finally gives you someone that can realistically go toe to toe with Nia Jax at some point, because that's been one of their biggest problems with Nia, is no one realistically can get in that ring with her.
Right. And that's the thing I was going to bring up, because I was like, well, we're talking about a woman who's went toe-to-toe with Nia Jax, and then Jade Cargill comes along. But Cargill, I mean, she might be one that matches Bianca Belair in strength. And that's another thing, too. Where does she fit when she gets back?
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of good angles they can go with this year. Like I said, I like the fact that they built up Jade that way, because one, Nia's kind of lost in the mix, and she keeps showing up around Tiffany still, saying she needs her title rematch and stuff. Well, that's fine now, and now you could have it versus what looks like the Brock Lesnar of the women's division, which makes it that much more interesting of a match.
And speaking of which, and maybe they should start building toward this right now. Now she's out right now having a baby. Naomi is, but of course by this time period that I'm saying, she would have had the baby and everything, and then she's kind of itching to come back as she returns, right? What do you think of SummerSlam 2026? We finally get the triple threat match: Belair, Cargill, Naomi.
Yeah, that would be great. And I think I can't remember the timeline of the announcement. Is there any chance she comes back to Raw after WrestleMania? Maybe drops in that
Naomi,
Monday and challenges for the title. I don't know the exact timeline of her dates, but that would be interesting too, because you figure by SummerSlam they would have to do it. But if anything, she could be one of the shock returns the Monday after if it fits into her timeline. But obviously, with the storyline there between just the three of them, that's going to be amazing when it happens, and especially now that you've given this new wrinkle to Cargill.
yeah, and now we have it to where no one is left out. Naomi has been a world champion. Belair's been a world champion. Now Cargill is. Now, whether you want to throw the women's world championship on the line or the WWE women's championship on the line, it makes for a banger. I think that baby is due April or May. Oh wait, she made the announcement about 2 months ago, actually. So that baby should be due around March or April.
Oh, so it'll be tough. So it'll probably be more like SummerSlam. So it'll be tough.
I mean,
but obviously we're gonna get there at some point. And like I said, with the new wrinkle, it should be an amazing match. And if they keep up the angle from earlier, where Jade was attacked by the jealousy of Naomi, like you've got so many moving parts there still that you could work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And with I mean, I really don't see her returning in the Raw after WrestleMania. At least not immediately into a storyline or in competition, having just had a kid. Now she may drop in and make the announcement like, "Hey guys, I'm doing fine. I'm gonna head back in training. I'm gonna kiss my kid. I'm gonna go back, and then I'm gonna be ready by like this summer." I can see her dropping in and doing something like that, but not immediately hopping into something. But excuse me, when she does get back, they need to start building that up. Meanwhile, with Stratton, now Stratton is being put in the position of the underdog, because what needs to happen for the immediate future is Jade Cargill just overpowering the shit out of Tiffany Stratton, whether in ring or out of ring. And it has to put doubt into Tiffany Stratton's mind, like, what do I have to do to get the best of her? What do I got to do to get the best of her? The crazy part is Stratton already beat her.
Right. When we had the first match where it just seemed like they were basically telling us Jade wasn't ready. But if they had this idea in mind 3 months ago, who knows where we're at this point. But it'll be interesting because I think you've got another squash coming up, because you can't like walk away from this at this point. You've made this character now. And then, Tiffany probably has to enter the Rumble and kind of go back to square one.
Right, absolutely. Well, our next topic, and that is the triple threat match for the Intercontinental Championship, in a match that I thought Rusev actually controlled for much of the match. But Dominic Mysterio came away with the gold. He utilized a little bit of Eddie Guerrero at the end. He falsely rung the bell. Rusev thought he won because he had Penta in the accolade, and Penta never submitted, and Dom was revealed to have rung the bell and everything. I mean, just from these ways, and maybe it's a little too soon to ask, but hey, I'm open to all. Is Dirty Dom submitting himself as one of the IC title grades?
I think we're getting there, especially just based on, as much as he's got antics, his in-ring work is pretty top-notch. He doesn't make a lot of mistakes. Like even in the Punk Uso match, and those are two veterans, you saw there was a little slip up on one of the neck breakers, and Punk kind of gave him a little kick to the shoulder to be like, "Hey, you messed that up."
Yeah.
But so he really doesn't make many mistakes in the ring, and everything he does has some sort of reason. He doesn't like waste. He doesn't go over to the bell and just okay, we're over here. We'll wait. Okay, we're ringing the bell. We're gonna do something. Like he doesn't just walk to an area just to waste time and walk around the ring and kind of do this rest spots. I think he uses the most of his time well, especially, and he really leans in on the whole Eddie Guerrero stick. I think he does a good job of it.
Yep, yeah. And so I mean, and now with as far as Rusev goes, because Rusev actually wrestled a damn good match. So did Penta as well. I actually kind of thought Rusev really stole the show, but that's a veteran in Rusev. It's kind of what you expect out of the man. He legitimately like controlled this match, and I was like, okay, he's obviously overpowering both of them. You're going up against essentially two luchadors who are going to have to take to the skies and chop the tree down type of deal, because you're not going to overpower Rusev. Guy's a power lifter. You're not going to outlift him. You're not going to outmatch him in strength or overmatch him in strength or anything like that. You're going to have to, well, if you're Penta, you're going to have to play your game. You're going to have to take to the skies. You have to hit him with kicks and impact moves. If you're Dom, you're going to have to resort to cheating at some point.
No, and like I had mentioned in the group, I think the funniest thing to me in that match was Penta being upset that he accidentally hit Rusev. Just turn around and use the hammer on Dom too. Like, let's not pause because we hit the heel.
Yeah, it's like, you guys aren't tag team partners. You hit Rusev, and you know what? If anything, you knocked the biggest man out of the match.
Yeah, and it was their way to write him out of the match too. They're like, all right, look, we can't squash him in any way because, like you said, they're two lighter weight guys, so we've got to hit him with the hammer. Okay, he's protected. Now end the match.
Now end the match, exactly. Especially in a match where Rusev went and grabbed the chair and started using it, so they had no issue with using the hammer. But yeah, I do not know now. Who do you see now? Do you see Penta and Rusev still, chasing and being contenders, or do you see somebody else to the fold? Because Dom, since WrestleMania, has been putting them away. Dom has probably had a better run. Dom has probably had a better run with the Intercontinental Championship post WrestleMania than Jey Uso did with the World Heavyweight title.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, he's had different opponents, different match styles. I think he's done a great job. I wouldn't mind seeing Sheamus get a run at him, just because, kind of like Rusev, it's going to be a solid match. But it'd be kind of interesting to see what they do here. Especially you've got 16 guys that are going to be involved in this tournament. Maybe he gets a new angle from that coming out of this tournament with whoever he screws over in the first round or whatever it may be. Or maybe Sammy recently dropped the United States title. That'd be another match I would like to see, because the two of them are good in ring workers. Obviously, Sammy has to move to Raw, but that's something else that I could see. At least opponent wise, would be a good opponent for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, with that being said, we're gonna move on to our announcement from John Cena. So he announces a 16-man tournament to determine the final opponent at WWE Saturday Night Main Event on December the 13th. Now, in my opinion, they could sweeten the stakes here just a little bit. Because John Cena, let's face it, had become the bit of a gatekeeper because he's the legend that's leaving and everything like that. What do you think of the winner? The winner of the tournament facing John Cena, right? What do you say that if they win the match, they officially punch their ticket to the Royal Rumble?
Yeah, and maybe like a number selection of their choice.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. I know they teased that'll be outside talents. Unfortunately, I think those are going to end up being like TNA talents. I don't think we're going to see Edge enter this thing as much as some of us would like to have that happen. I think it's going to be like Jeff Hardy's going to enter this thing, or someone from TNA where they've got that overlap with NXT. But it was an interesting tease, obviously, to mention that based on what has gone on both shows, given the shout outs from both wrestlers to each other on the different television programs. But I think contract would avoid Edge from entering this tournament, unfortunately.
Yeah. And with that being said, because he did say, and maybe a few faces who don't work here. What if the winner of the tournament is Joe Hendry?
Yeah, I mean, let's hope not. But that's the type of thing I think that the tease is.
Why not? Joe Hendry is immensely popular in TNA.
I'm not. So I'm not saying that. I think just in terms of the stature of who Cena should face for his last match. If he's having an extra match between, I think that's a fun match to see, kind of like what we saw Orton and Henry kind of have that little couple minutes at Mania. It was entertaining as hell, but I think for the last match, I think it's a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, with he says no Joe Hendry. I mean, because if you really think about it, he pretty much faced, the big opponents already. Cody Rhodes, he did it twice. CM Punk beat him. Randy Orton, AJ Styles. So it's like, well, who's still hanging around from his era? Jeff Hardy?
I don't think Hardy will win. I'll see him entering the tournament. I don't think Hardy wins though. I mean, especially since just talked about him. It would be interesting to see if Dom entered the tournament and went all the way. I think that would be a hell of a match.
Yeah, it would.
And that's, I think from Cena's perspective, especially based on what he's done here, he gave R-Truth that great match, and I know R-Truth is pretty much at the end of his run, but imagine if he gave Dom that type of rub, just where that puts him later on.
Yeah. And considering that Dom is already a dual champion and you want to put him in the Royal Rumble and have a chance to go for a third, I mean, why not? Dom very well could enter and win,
and we said it last year on the show, he was the loudest pop at Mania when he won the title.
He was. That one there right there cannot be denied. Here's one more name for you. Trick Williams.
Yeah, that's another one that could definitely enter. And he's, I like his stuff in ring, and he's a high flyer. I think Cena could make him, very AJ Styles-ish in terms of what he could do off the ropes and stuff. I think that's a great match Cena could have.
Yeah, it very well could. Well, we'll move on to our next topic, and that is the main event. And for the vacant World Heavyweight Championship in a back and forth match, I rated this match about a B. It was a very good match. But CM Punk defeated main event Jey Uso to once again win the World Heavyweight Championship. Is a Jey Uso heel turn imminent? And I mean as imminent as here in a few hours.
It could be. I think, like we discussed previously, kind of depends where we're going for War Games, right? Or do they continue to tease it through and actually put these guys on the same side and see if they can work together through the match and it happens, at War Games?
Yeah.
But it'd be interesting to see, because you figure a lot has to be set up tonight in terms of where they're going in the next 26 days before Survivor Series.
Yeah. Do you think they made the right call by having Punk win?
If it's, like we discussed, I think Thursday, as long as it's not this 48-hour reign, then they're giving Reed a title shot or Breaker a title shot tonight, and all of a sudden it's a quick reign again for Punk. I think that would be a disservice at this point. So hopefully it's a long-term plan in terms of when that match is going to go down, because obviously you figure the Vision is one of the first up for a shot at the title.
Yeah. And and not sitting here saying that CM Punk's going to retire next year or anything, but it's probably safe to say that this is Punk's last world title reign.
One of the longer ones he'll have, right? Maybe he'll have another short one or stopgap one here and there. But yeah, I don't see too many long ones for him.
Turn him heel tonight. Brett Luckfield said it. Turn him heel tonight. The only thing about it though is if you turn him heel, we're once again gonna get twin versus twin, which we already got at WrestleMania last year. And here's the thing: Uso versus Uso was not a bad match. Was it the worst match on the card between both nights? Yes, I rated it about a C+.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was kind of almost like Hall versus Nash. Like, it was a decent match.
Halloween Havoc, yeah.
Yeah, like it was a decent match, but it was nothing to write home about, really. And for me, like we talked about Thursday, if you're gonna turn one Uso, I would turn them both and leave Roman as the lone bloodline face, and maybe Fatu comes over to Raw or something. But I would turn them both and get away from this possible brother versus brother again thing, because like you said, the match was not great. I think Jimmy's still working out some kinks as a singles wrestler personally. I think putting them back in the ring is kind of like we've already seen this type of thing. We've seen this storyline play out.
I do know that by next year, I do want to see him as a singles title contender. It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
for the WWE title or anything like that, but it's time for Jimmy to hold some solo gold, man.
yeah, I think we're getting there, and you could see he's getting more confident even when they have him doing little segments. Um, you can just see it's a little more different than it used to be for him when they were always going to be a tag team, and that's the danger, right? You keep doing this brother versus brother, then we've got to put them back together because they're the Usos. How many times you want to do that?
Yeah, yeah. And so, something else I'm gonna say. Oh yeah, if a Jey Uso heel turn happens, I could see like Jimmy run out there and try to check him, only to turn right around and kick whoever it is he attacked, and them showing unity. So if Jay turns heel, they turn heel together. Jimmy at the end of the day is like, hey, that's my twin brother. I got loyalty. I rock with him no matter what.
Yeah, I think that's the way you have to do it this time. I don't think you can do the one-off because, like you said, that it was a good match, but I don't think it fits right now in terms of everything else that they've kind of dropped Easter eggs on in terms of he's being like Roman and all this other stuff.
Indeed. Well, now it's on to Sean's segment, and that is Top Rope Throwback. So we're going to take this back to WCW Monday Nitro 1997. Perry Saturn actually was coming from ECW in a tag team with Cronus known as the Eliminators, in which they had one of the nastier tag finishes at that time period. But he debuts and defeats Disco Inferno for the WCW Television Championship. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, little nice debut, I guess, for Saturn. I can't remember if he had been sitting ringside with Raven at that point or not. But to come out and grab the TV title and then either put it into Raven's flock. Unfortunately, I think everybody was excited to eventually get to. We knew it was kind of going towards Raven versus Saturn from the minute they entered the company because they had great matches outside of WCW. But I think WCW kind of rushed it. I think Saturn was turned on like 3 weeks into his run as TV champion instead of kind of giving it a long build. And I think what they could have also done, because they had the War Games match back in WCW, is you could have really built Raven's flock up to be at least another niche group to go up against the NWO, because a lot of those War Game matches somehow or another involved Ric Flair compiling a team to face the NWO. I think if you had built up the Ravens flock a little bit better, not saying they would have gone over in those matches, but at least you have a different team you could have thrown in there at some point versus it always being like a Flair-led type deal.
Yeah, you know what? And now that I think about it, and don't get me wrong, that fall brawl was pretty good, but they did miss an opportunity. You had WCW NWO Revenge coming out on N64 like a few weeks later. You figure, right? You missed the opportunity to put WCW, NWO White, NWO Red, and the Ravens flock in War Games.
Yeah, and you had Raven on the cover of that game. He was definitely considered a face of that company, given the time of his acquisition and the fact that WWF at the time wanted him to. He was a big talent coming out of ECW.
Yeah, absolutely. But a hell of a. This is Perry Saturn with hair, by the way. But
Yeah.
excellent debut for Perry Saturn beating Disco Inferno for the television championship. Next, we're gonna go to WWE Raw November of 2008. Y2J beating Batista to win the WWE Championship in a steel cage match. Your thoughts about this one?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Last week we had, Jericho. He had 2 matches in one Raw on last, October's Throwback. He actually won the IC title and then lost it in a steel cage match. And years later on a November match, steel cage versus Batista, he wins a world title. For me though, if you look at Jericho's list in terms of who he's actually defeated for a world title, it's got to be one of the most impressive compiled lists that a wrestler has in terms of world title wins. I mean, Triple H is on the list. The Rock is on the list. Stone Cold is on the list. I think he beat Michaels for a title once. I mean, the list of people that he beat for a title is amazing.
Let's not forget the title reign that should have been April of 2000 when he upset Triple H. to win the WWF title, and then they came out and reversed it, and
Yeah.
then they had another match later on that night. Uh, a lot of people were pissed off at that one. Go and check out the pop when that final hand hit the mat. Everyone was like, "Holy shit!" Like Jericho just won the WWF title, dude. He just won a world title, man. And then they took it all back, man. I ain't gonna lie to you, I was mad as hell.
Yeah. No, and it, like, you know, he was kind of like, you know, even Angle, he kind of won matches you didn't think going in he had a chance to win. You know, I can't remember if he ever beat the Undertaker for a title, but you know, the list is just, it's massive, and you just don't see that too much, especially having Triple H, Stone Cold, and The Rock on your list as guys you've defeated to win a world title.
To win the world title. The crazy part about it is he won that match in April of 2000, and it was thought that he was the champion. But that right there planted the seed, because what happened the next year?
Yep.
WCW World Champion and then Undisputed Champion.
Yep. And on the same night, and then he held those belts for seemed like forever.
Yeah, absolutely. But hell of a match in this one. And then finally, to wrap up the show, we're going to take it to WWF Monday Night Raw in November of '96. So some guy named Dwayne Johnson debuted as Rocky Maivia. And then we also had the infamous gun confrontation between Stone Cold and Brian Pillman. In my honest opinion, from my perception, it was the precursor to the Austin Hart Foundation feud.
Yeah, no, so this is, you know, Rocky Maivia's debut actually probably got a little bit more of a afterthought, because the way Raw ended with a gunshot and going black and no one kind of knowing what the hell happened. You know, it's one of the more infamous angles, you know, because it's still talked about now. Like, did they cross the line? Did they not cross the line? I don't think there's ever been a gun used in an angle again after that. So it was an incredible angle. But like you said, what it really did is it kicked off, you know, Austin versus Hart. And that obviously ended up being one of the best feuds, you know, of that 5-year run there. And then Rocky, you know, obviously that character failed miserably quickly. And they turned him, and he joins the Nation of Domination down the line. And then eventually, you know, that launches us into, you know, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Yeah, absolutely. It all started with the Nation. Not to mention, but in February of 1997, Rocky Maivia upset Hunter Hearst Helmsley to become the youngest Intercontinental Champion at the age of 24.
Yeah, and you know, he gets the IC belt. He gets booed. It reminds me of Roman winning the Rumble, and he gets booed. It's funny how their, you know, career arcs are kind of similar. They kind of got shoved down our throats, and then they took them off, repackaged them, and then all of a sudden, you know, they're some of the biggest faces of the companies.
Yeah, it wasn't until they became an asshole that people started loving them.
Yep.
You know, so
the more realistic it was, you know, it gave the people a reason to actually get behind them versus, you know, the blue collar baby face that, you know, Vince wanted them to be.
Yeah. I mean, the seeds were planted. The crazy part about it is when 1998 started, and you go back to WrestleMania when Ken Shamrock beat him for the IC title, and then the decision was reversed because Shamrock wouldn't let go of the ankle lock and everything like that. I don't know if anyone foresaw that November The Rock holding the top gold. But then it started to make sense. He took over as leader of the Nation, so he proved he could lead. He proved he could be the signature guy. He's building up his fan base. He's got his catchphrases and everything. He had a classic ladder match with Triple H at SummerSlam and everything. And it was like he was stamped to be the guy since he walked in the door. It all 100%. Literally made sense.
And it's like, I think it was Triple H that said it, you know, these groups are really put together, not as much to have this group running the federation, but to see who's going to stand out from the group. You know, who's going to rise to the top from the group. And we've seen it, you know, all throughout, even with the Judgment Day. Early on, Damian Priest rose to the top. You know, we moved him out the group so he could be on his own. I think we're slowly doing the same thing with Dominic. And that's what these groups are meant to do. Like you said, you know, they elevated Reed and Breakker. Now it's okay for them to move on.
Right. Just like with Evolution. When Randy Orton was ready, they kicked him out the group. Batista, same thing. they went on to be world champions.
Yep.
I mean, shoot, even if we're talking about the Nation of Domination here, okay? Um, this is why,
No,
Farouk, man, I really wish that Jake was here, because me and him talk all the time on the Nation. You look at what he spawned out of the Nation of Domination. The Godfather went on to win the Intercontinental Championship and become a Hall of Famer. D'Lo Brown went on to become the greatest European champion of all time. Mark Henry went on to become a world champion and a future Hall of Famer. And then there's Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah, and then Farouk obviously was the established part early on, but he took 4 young guys. It wasn't just it wasn't like Evolution where you're gonna have a couple old and a couple young. You had 4 young guys and Farouk. So for him to get them all somewhere, and Henry said it on interviews, he credits Farouk with a lot of his early success in getting to where he needed to be in terms of working like a monster in the ring. Like, you're 400 pounds, you can't work like a small guy.
Right. And you know what? I think that, I think I felt probably the happiest for the Godfather, because he had a career prior to Mark Henry and The Rock and D'Lo Brown, but he couldn't get a permanent gimmick. He was Papa Shango, then he was Kamala the Fighting Machine and all of that, and then he comes in the Nation and he's Kama Mustafa and everything, but then he became the Godfather Kama Mustafa, and that led to the Godfather.
Yeah, no, and it's kind of like Glenn Jacobs, right? He had the dentist thing, fake Diesel, and then he lands his character. But because he did such good work as the other ones, they had the confidence to put you into another one. And you'll be able to be believable. Hey, it is actually somebody else. It's not the same dentist guy that you just saw, a couple of years ago. But Papa Shango, really, for me, they created that only for the Undertaker, and they didn't know what to do with it afterwards.
Yeah, and then even with Kevin Nash, this is why Kevin Nash always credits WWE. He said they were the first entity to allow me to be myself, because he felt WCW tried to ruin them with the gimmicks of Oz and Vinny Vegas and Master Blaster and everything. Well, they gave him the gimmick of a trucker, and it worked out. And the crazy part about it is when he went to WCW, he didn't act like a trucker, but he still dressed like him. But then he was himself. You know what I'm saying? Kevin Nash has always had that smartest guy in a room type of deal. He's the only one in the clique that actually went to college. He's a psych major.
Yeah, no, he, and some of the things he says, you'll catch it. He's quoting, Mein Kampf and things like this, and you're like, oh, this guy's a little different.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of, Dusty was just a little bit different on the characters, right? And Nash has said it like, hey, it was Dusty. What am I going to tell him? No, it's a stupid idea. You're going to tell Dusty, I'm going to do it. And then when it fails in 2 weeks, give me something else.
Give me something else. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're about 1 minute from Monday Night Raw. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Shout out to, where you at, buddy? Brett Luckfield in the comments. Appreciate you tuning in. We will be with you next week with more Top Rope Talk. See you later. Run my video. I just had it.